My name is Nyssa and I am a genetics major. Well, I took BIS 101 and I really liked the class, and so I decided that's what I wanted to major in. I was originally like an undeclared biological science emphasis, and so instead of like doing one of the emphases in biology, I went into genetics. For me, it wasn't very difficult because I was in the same college and I was supposed to declare like an emphasis in biology by the time I was a junior, and instead I just sort of changed over to genetics. The most frustrating part was just finding a time that my major advisor and I could meet up and sign the papers and take it into the dean's office. And it took a few weeks to get transferred, but it wasn't a really hard process. It's just some paperwork. Well, because when I was in high school and I wanted to come to Davis, I knew I wanted to do something in biology, but I didn't know specifically what. So I was in biological sciences, but I didn't have a declared emphasis.
So you felt like because you took this class, like genetics was a better major for you?
Yes.
Did you enjoy taking a science class abroad?
I loved it. It was really hard, and I really wish it were longer so that I could have seen more stuff when I was there and maybe had more time to do the material, but I really like the material, I really like the people. And I wish it were longer just because I feel like we spent 4 hours, 4 days a week in class, and if we had had 2 more weeks and we could have cut that down by even an hour, I feel like it would have made my experience better and I would have had more time to learn the material. Yeah, I mean, it was great because we got to see like what real labs look like and how to apply this stuff, and it was more, I liked it because I feel like a lot of times at Davis you get sat in a really big lecture hall versus when I was abroad it was only 20-30 students, so we actually got to sit and talk to the professor and get more of a one-on-one experience. I really liked 121, molecular biology. That was really interesting to learn more in depth about like how meiosis and double-strand breaks and all that stuff works. And I really, really liked human genetics. The number, I think that's MCD 162, which I'm in right now. It's just been fascinating to learn about human genetics and the human genome and genetic diseases. They've all been lecture classes. It was the material and the fact that the professors have been really good at demonstrating, like conveying that information, and made it very interesting, and they also brought in a lot of examples of more recent research and how it's applicable, and still a growing field and where it's going and what our career options are. I mean, I think there's a lot of good career options that you can do in medicine, as a research technician, in biotechnology, even in law, if you want to go into like patent law, if you have a good technical background, or technical writing even. It's a really good field to go into. I mean, I really am interested in going into biotechnology, and I really also like business, so I want to go into, eventually get my MBA and be project manager or something in the industry. I think that I have a pretty solid scientific background, and I also am doing the technology management minor, so that has given me some business background as well. So hopefully I'll be able to start that when I graduate. Well, I mean, career fairs I would argue are good for networking, but I feel like a lot of my networking has just come from people who I happen to know who work in industry. I've worked in a lab on campus in the plant pathology department for 2 years, and basically our project is trying to develop a strain of grapes that's resistant to this bacteria called Xylella, which causes Pierce's disease, which is right now about as far north as like the southern part of the Bay Area, but you can imagine if it gets up into Napa, it's going to be really devastating for the wine industry. So we're trying to figure out how to make plants resistant to that using genetic engineering.
How'd you get your lab position?
It's actually sort of funny. I'm in a sorority, and one of the girls in my sorority had the position before me, and she knew me and knew I was a genetics major and asked if I would be interested in taking it over when she graduated. So I sort of got it through the back door, but it's worked out well. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't like most chemistry classes that I've had to take, and I know that like it is important to have some of that knowledge for other classes, but I feel like I never really use it, and it was sort of a waste of my time. And I don't know. I go back and forth because I understand that it's useful in terms of thinking and like is necessary for some background, but I feel like I had just took way more than I really actually needed. And I wish that I had spent more time doing things that are more related to genetics. And physics was another one that I thought was a complete waste of time. I never use it. It was a terribly structured course.
Was it just the material or was it also the format?
Both. The material was stuff that I had already learned in high school, but like presented in a more confusing manner, and the discussion labs were completely pointless and a huge waste of time. Not even the TAs wanted to be there, and they were all offered at the worst possible times that were very inconvenient. My advice for freshmen would be stick it out through the classes that are hard, the chemistry, organic chemistry, because the stuff that you learn in upper division classes is really cool. If you can get involved in research, like find opportunities to do things that you like, because it'll set your eye on the prize so that you don't get bogged down in hating stuff that you'll get there eventually. I mean, I think that a lot of labs won't even take on people who are haven't had some upper division courses. So I would think that like your junior year is probably the ideal time, but if you can get something earlier. I mean, I started as a sophomore. I'm now a senior, and I just have learned a lot that's helped me in a lot of other classes. So maybe as a freshman, if you're just getting oriented and you need some more time to study for your classes, don't go for it, but sky is the limit. I don't know. Find stuff, do what you like. If you don't like it, nobody says you have to stay.
Do you use your major advisor very often?
Occasionally, but I mean, I have she gave me a schedule that has pretty much stayed the same. So I try and talk to her maybe once every couple of quarters. If I have a question about something administrative, I'll send her an email. I would like it if I could meet with her more, because I feel like a lot of times she's not very accessible just because she has a lot of people to talk to. And I feel like she sends out a lot of emails, but some of them aren't even relevant to me. Like they'll be like, oh, research opportunity, and I'll look into it more. It's only for minority students, and I don't qualify as one, so I don't really necessarily, I mean, I understand that some people might like it, but for me, it's not really relevant. But I also think that this year they did a social at the beginning of the quarter, so you can actually get to meet people in your major and talk to professors and stuff. And I think it'd be good if they did more stuff like that, just for networking, talking to people in your major, getting to know more people in your major, getting to know professors, making UC Davis, which is a large research university, more personable for students. I think go a long way. If there were a way that you could get people who are interested in science, as freshmen, to do at least something that's related to their major, some sort of introduction class, which is just preliminary, because I know I didn't take my first genetics class until I was almost a junior, and I was even questioning whether I wanted to stick with the biological sciences because I was getting so bogged down with chemistry that I didn't even care about calculus and all sorts of things. So just to retain interest, I think that it would really behoove the university to do more of those introductory or freshman seminars, I don't know, but something to gauge interest. I mean, just keep in mind that I feel like there should never be a quarter when you're not taking something that relates to your major. I feel like you should do at least one thing that is interesting to you. And I think that maybe even I know that for my major, I only get to take 5 restricted electives that are actually upper division interesting classes in my major. So if there's any way at all to cut down some of the requirements so that you have more time to take those fun and interesting classes, I would highly, highly suggest it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.